Welcome to the ANA Virtual Pre-Application Training, Criterion I, in the Approach section, Readiness and Implementation Strategy. This is video 7. We are the Alaska Region Training and Technical Assistance Center. You can reach us through our website at www.anaalaska.org. On our website, you can ask us a question. You can find our team and email us to ask questions, and you can request technical assistance. Our team is Larry, Andrina, and Charles, and myself, Angela. Again, this is video 7 of a 9-video series with Readiness and Implementation Strategy. We suggest that you watch each of these videos in order, that you compile your application in this order, and that if you have a need to review some information, you can go to the small video segment and rewatch that. This sub-criterion has 6 elements that you will need to address, and it is worth up to 20 points. These elements consist of describing the available tangible resources and services, providing a plan for obtaining resources and services and supplies that you don't have available to you, describing in detail the milestone activities and how they build on one another, providing a recruitment and selection and retention process for participants, talking about your project sustainability, how that's going to happen, the resources, and then citing your potential obstacles and challenges and developing a plan for strategies to solve them. So addressing elements 22 and 23, we're going to suggest that you follow these 5 steps. Determine the resources necessary, then establish which one of these resources are available to you, describe the benefit to the project and why they're necessary, then also determining of the resources which ones are needed, where you're going to get them from, and also you want to think about the cost and value. This will help you in building your budget. It will also help in determining the contributions for non-federal share and the types of things that you might be needing to ask your partners for. You're also going to talk about when and how the outside resources and services are going to be obtained and the benefit that they bring to the project. So again, we have developed a really small table that you could use, and you can feel free to adapt this to say more, but we have looked at, okay, here's a column for what do we have available, what do we need to obtain still, what is that resource or service, what is the source, and then what is the value. So this is another small, simple chart that we developed. So let's take a quick look. So for example, these 4 farm sites, they are available. They are going to come from our partner, our 4 farmers, and they're $4,000 a month. Now remember that whatever cost and value you use here, if it's part of your budget, you want to make sure that it's the same and it's consistent. We do need to still get these greenhouses. We're going to buy them from factory direct greenhouses, and they are $20,000 a piece. We're going to want to state that in the budget. There's a greater example on page 83 for this. When you're addressing element 24, this is where you're going to describe the activities, Please do not just recopy the OWP into the narrative. I have seen this. So first of all, it's a waste of your pages because you already have the OWP. What you want to do is just provide some additional clarity about the activities that are in there. You want to talk about why you have placed them in there and how you feel that, moving from activity 4 to activity 5 builds on that previous activity, which is getting you to where you need to go. Write this from that manager's perspective where you're explaining the implementation of your processes and how they are going to lead to the resulting outputs. When you're addressing element 25, you want to detail all those recruitment activities. Describe the types of participants you're going to recruit. What is their age group? What are those demographics about them? What are the outreach activities that you need to recruit them? Are you going to the high schools? Are you going to some elders group? Who are they and how are you going to recruit them? And then what does that look like? So maybe you're going to reach out through community newsletters, at the community meetings, at tribal council meetings, and you're going to share that there's some applications. Okay, that also is part of the selection and screening process then, right? So folks need to fill out an application. They need to meet X, Y, and Z criteria to be a part of the project. And, if they score at least a 5 out of 7, they're in, whatever that is. And then how are you going to keep them involved? This is a biggie. What are you going to do to keep retention high? I don't know about you, maybe not where you're from, but I've seen where we recruit all these people, we recruit like 30 participants, and this person gets sick, this person loses interest, somebody else decides this really is not for me, I thought it was something different. Next thing you know, we're down to 10. But our numbers said we're going to train 20. I need to keep 20 people interested. So how do I do that? Is it a stipend? If they complete so many trainings, they get a coupon drawing, and then at the end there's a drawing and they can win something. I mean, what are those things? You know your community and your community members best, so you want to talk about that. And then you also want to make sure that you have those items in the budget. Are they getting donated? Is that part of your non-federal share? Or your partners are contributing them? How is that coming to be? You're going to want to talk about how the project will be sustained into the future. You need to state each outcome that you've talked about and how is that going to be sustained. What resources do you need? What staff do you need or partnerships to keep this going? At what level will this be maintained into the future? So ANA wants you to take this project and keep it going. And that's the sustainability of it. How many times have we seen, a project gets going, it's really great, the funding ends, project dies, everything stops. You can build a sustainability plan into your last year of funding where you're researching funders for projects or partners that can take this on or maintain part of it or that will contribute. Or maybe you need to go to the tribal council and say, listen, I realize we can't fund all of this, but if we could fund this segment of this project, it'll allow us to keep this going at a smaller, maybe we can't train 20 people a year, but we could still train 5 or 10. Maybe we can't keep all this staff on, but we can keep some of this staff on. What does that look like? And don't just say we're going to look for more funding, right? have an idea about who funds these kind of projects, right? This is a agricultural thing, so where are we going to look to? We're going to look to like the USDA or something like that for funding to maintain this. So in the last year, part of our activities are going to be to develop the funding plan for moving forward. We're going to research the USDA and maybe a couple of other funders, and we're going to see what kind of funding they have available. What does that look like? What are the application criteria? We want to make sure that we have the right documentation and we've collected the right data to show that we're successful to ask for these future fundings, which is another reason why that data collection piece, what we talked about earlier under those outcomes and the outcome tracker and the outcome tracking strategy, why all of that is really important, that we haven't overestimated so that we can show our success and use that for future funding. Now, you cannot use federal dollars to actually apply for other federal grant dollars, but you can help pay your staff to research that. And often we don't have time or funds for developing those sustainability plans. This is a way for you to do that within your projects. So here, for example, one of our outcomes is that community members will have increased availability to affordable fresh produce. So we are saying that we're going to maintain the partnerships with the farmers. They're going to use and maintain the greenhouses and hydroponic systems. And that over time, maybe they're going to try to increase the selection of vegetables and fruits available. And in doing so, the profits from some of the sales are going to help our co-op keep on the agricultural coordinator on staff part-time. And that we're going to focus on some USDA grants and loan funding for an expansion of staff training and other new technologies for the farmers. So that's our sustainability plan. All projects experience some challenges, and there are various challenges that this scoring criteria asks for you to address. What ANA wants to know is that you are thinking on your feet and that you have a contingency or a backup plan to address them. Remember, these are not day-to-day standard operating practices. These are things that are out of your control during project management. What I mean by that is, we know here's a challenge. Oh, we have to order everything really early because we have to meet a barge schedule. So if we don't, we won't get our stuff on time. So what's the plan? We need to make sure we order everything by April. Well, we have to do that all the time because we always have to meet that. So that is a standard operating practice that we have within our organization. Here are some of the elements that we need to have a contingency plan for. Late hiring. In the event you need to hire during your project implementation, let's say, especially if it's the project director for the beginning of the project, you need to describe how those startup activities are going to be implemented and by whom until that project staff is in place. And then one of the key things is that you have to include this acting individual's qualifications, right? So if your project director needs an associate's degree to do this work and has to have an elevated education, or let's say your agricultural coordinator really has to know about agricultural things, and you're putting the temporary new hired high school student in charge of that activity, it may not fly with the reviewer, right? Or A&A. So again, the qualifications. So if your project director is going to be late, maybe it's your executive director or your tribal administrator that steps in the interim to make sure the project gets started while you get these staff people hired. Staff turnover. I know it never happens in your organization, but what if the project director wins the lotto and a couple $1,000,000 and says, hey, sorry, I quit, I'm out of here. Who's going to step in to make sure that the project keeps going? And again, the qualifications for that person. Another one is, what if you have a partnership that falls through? And we have seen this on projects in the past where, for no fault of the partner, for whatever reason, by the time it was their turn to participate in this project, they were unable to do so. Maybe they committed a particular individual who has left their organization now and they haven't hired. I mean, there's all kinds of things that happen. What is your backup plan? And it's really important that if this is part of this partnership is part of the match, that you describe how that obligation is still going to be met. Remember, your match is a huge piece of this project, and your responsibility and the commitment that you've made as part of receiving these federal dollars. So a lot of times it's just about thinking in advance. Okay, I have this partner and a consultant, and they're going to come in and they're going to do our initial data collection spreadsheet setup, and they're going to work with us and show us how to collect that data. They're going to be training somebody. What happens if, I don't know, again, their person they committed fell through, they can't do it? Sometimes if it's a consultant, oh, well, they got some great, fabulous new gig and they're just busy now. Look around. Who else does that work? Know in advance and talk about that. There are 3 other companies or 3 other consultants that do this work and they fall within our bid range or something to that effect. What if there is low recruitment or low retention? What is your plan to recruit more participants? If we said we were going to recruit 20 and only 10 show up, how are we going to get the other 10? Or what will we need to do in the future? The next year we said we were still going to get another 20. Well, how will we get 30? Or whatever that looks like. And then how are we going to make sure if 20 people show up that they stay? And I talked about that already, so I'm not going to keep going on that. And then what about those other things that we just really also need to think about for here? Weather-related delays, shipping delays. We were going to bring a consultant in and they were going to train 10 people during XYZ week, and weather came up and the consultant couldn't get in. What are we going to do? Or, the barge is delayed or something. So how do we keep going? Is there a way that we can shift activities around to make sure that, well, if that happens, then, we can do activities 4 and 5 while 3 gets moved to after 4 and 5, something like that. There are activities on pages 84, 89, and 92. There are a couple of extra elements for the language FOAs, one of them is 30, and it talks about how are you going to identify opportunities to replicate or modify the projects, include a plan for preservation of the products from your project, which are going to benefit future generations within your community and or other communities or tribes that might want to use this. So one of the things is, are these digital or are they paper? I've seen folks that are still like create all these materials on paper and there's no digital copy. And now they go through, they start training and they realize that, oh, we might want to modify this or we might want to modify that. It takes a lot of work to change up the curriculum when it's all on paper versus electronically. And then if it is electronically, what is the program that you're using and how easy is it? Do you need to have a consultant that comes in because nobody knows how to run the software because you had a consultant do it in the first place? So really think about those things when you're in the development so that you can address them here. And then for the preservation, how are you going to store them digitally? Where are they going to be stored? And how are they going to be stored in such a way that you're not going to lose them even if there's a natural disaster, right? So things like there are several copies, they're in different places. At the university with the Alaska Native Language Center, in a fireproof, waterproof safe, cloud storage, all those kinds of things. And then also how these can be used or modified by somebody else. So if you have similar dialects around you, how could you share this with them that they would also easily be able to modify it for their own dialect? Or how might you be using someone else's material and modifying it to your dialect, right? We don't have to recreate the wheel each time. We can start with a well-developed curriculum and modify it to our needs. In the Esther Martinez language FOAs, there are an additional 3 elements to address. These are around the language nest and the survival school. And it has to do with meeting the minimum of 500 hours of instruction. Also, how parent engagement is going to happen, and an official document. So when you're considering the implementation plan and you're describing the recruitment and retention of the students and the instructors, and you're meeting this 500 hours, you really want to take into consideration school schedules and holidays, the challenges, how you're going to overcome them. Kids get sick, kids drop out, teachers get sick, they drop out, they move, people have babies, you know, all those kinds of things, turnover. And that falls in line with the other challenges that we mentioned earlier. And also then securing a site may affect some of these timelines, because remember, these are site-based and the language nest is sort of that daycare setting. And I have seen difficulty with the fire marshal and getting the approvals on sites. So you really want to take that into consideration while you're thinking about this and setting it up. You want to really think about how you're going to schedule to accommodate the guardians or the parents and how you are going to keep retention of them. So I have been on site visits for projects that are talking about we're not having parents show up or enough of the parents show up. And when I asked, well, when are the parent classes? Oh, like 3 in the afternoon, right after the kids get done for the day. And I said, well, are the parents at work? Well, yeah. So you're expecting them to take off work to come once a week for the classes? Well, yeah. I said, well, Would that work for you? Would you be able to take off once a week? Oh, no. So when could you hold them? Well, the parents keep saying that if we did it on the evenings and weekends, that would be great. Well, what's stopping that? Well, my schedule is only 9 to 5. Okay, can you adjust your work schedule to accommodate the parent learning? Oh, sure. So think about that when you're initially setting this up. What is that person's schedule needing to look like? And are you going to have the ability for them to flex their schedule? The other thing is keeping the parents involved. Are you going to provide childcare and meals? Because part of the problem is, what about all those single parents that have these kids, and what are they supposed to do? How are they going to come even on the evening and weekend if there's nobody to take care of their kids, or if they have to figure out food? I've seen some really creative stuff where, as part of the parent learning, it's done around meals and what is said at the meals, and the kids are involved, so the kids are learning with the parents, and it's really become this family learning. And I've heard some really good success around that as well. And then for a survival school or language nest, the organization needs to attach a certification document. And people think that, oh, there's a document out there that they have to go get. No, this is self-certifying. It's a document that comes from your organization, so you want to put it on the letterhead of your tribe or organization, and it needs to be signed by an authorized representative. And you are self-certifying that you have 3 years of experience operating and administrating either a language nest, a survival school, or some other educational program where the instruction is conducted in accordance with Public Law 109-394. And if you're doing these, you will have a pretty good idea about what that involves. And if you don't know, then here's a way to go look up those codes to get you familiar before you jump in. Again, you can reach us at our website for technical assistance. You click the technical assistance tab and the button, and you fill out our form, upload your documents. This is the formal technical assistance that you get. Every application gets it at 16 hours. Please call us in between, ask us questions. There's even an ask question button that you can submit your smaller questions. Email the team with questions. We will help you along the way to the best of our abilities.